Just a note, guys, that these videos are for educational purposes only. Results video for the Swiss franc CPI release. We're looking at a calendar here from Forex Factory, and we have the Swiss franc release 3:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, USA, and the forecast was for a negative 0.1%, and the actual was a negative 0.2%. Now I want to take a look at another calendar here, just to compare some results to see what we're looking at. I always like to look at more than one calendar, as sometimes one can have a different number than the other. And in fact, in this particular case, here we have a forecast on this calendar of 0 and an actual of a negative 0.2%. In either case, the trade plan trigger on this was a 0.1% deviation, which is almost any deviation from the forecasted. So in this case, the trigger was met. And on the CPI, if the CPI drops, especially in today's economic environment, it normally signals that it is good for the particular country or currency. I know sometimes that seems counterintuitive for you that the CPI has reduced, but the reason that it reduced was, or the reaction because it's reduced, is it costs less to purchase the goods and services in that particular country with the current value of that currency. And here's the chart for the US dollar Swiss franc after the release. It's a 1-minute chart, and I've indicated the release point right here at 3:15 a.m. And the release again was a miss by a negative 0.1% or a 0.2, depending on which particular calendar you looked at. The trigger was again 0.1 deviation from the forecast, and that trigger was met. Trade plan calls for a reaction to the release. If it's a negative, we are saying it's positive for the Swiss franc, which means you would sell the US dollar franc, USD-CHF. So let's just take this out, and we move out, and really it kind of flatlined right after the release and didn't do much of anything. It went against us for 12, 13 pips from the entry point, and it began to drop around 7:46 a.m. Again, this is a 1-minute chart, so what we're seeing here, I'm going to go ahead and bring this out. And here we are looking at the beginning of the U.S. market setting to open in this area. So I looked for some news information that would have affected this around 8 a.m., 8:15. I hadn't found anything that was major to cause the U.S. dollar to drop in such a rapid fashion. I would love to say it's because of the Swiss franc, but we know better than that. Something happened to cause the U.S. dollar to lose value against the franc. Whatever it was, we're in this trade. It was a great trade from a standpoint that we had stayed pat with a stop 20, 25, 30 pips above. Never came close. Was not very painful. It was against us for 12 pips at a maximum. And by 8:40 in the morning, we would have picked up approximately 50 pips on the US dollar Swiss franc. One other thing I want to look at here while we're looking at this recording is the franc yen, to see indeed. I think it's a good point to compare what is going on when we look at the franc and the yen, to see, did the news release really cause the Swiss franc to gain value? And let's draw a vertical line at the time of the news release. Now this is a 5-minute chart. I didn't want to throw a 1 minute up because I would have to drag it out. But let's just draw our line here at 3:15. There's our line. And indeed, the Swiss franc throughout the morning did pick up some strength and continued to pick up strength into the open of the U.S. market. Not as great as the drop that occurred with the dollar franc at 8 o'clock in the morning, but still the Franc yen, the franc was again showing strength. And I do believe that that strength that it was showing here was in relation to the CPI release that came out at 3:15 in the morning. Hope you enjoyed these reviews and results of these trades, and hope to see you next week with a few more of these great trades and the results videos. Have a great weekend.